do that. Okay, it's recording. It's so nice to meet you. And just to make sure I pronounce your name correctly, it's Rheann, right?
Rheann, yes.
Yeah, and say your last name for me.
Engeleke.
Ngoki. Okay, so
Yes.
I
It's a strange
have
one.
no, not at all. But I have done some just reading about you, and I have so much to get into. But I want to start with like where you're from in Wisconsin, and I saw if you hear a dog, we just rescued this 6 pound puppy
Oh,
back here, and he is all puppy. So
oh
if
my
he's
gosh.
jumping around, just please, I will try my best to disregard him too. But so starting back from like your background and where you're from, I read the article in Forbes where
Oh
you are
yeah.
just like, like coming from that small town and how it just like felt like such a big dream, right? It felt like, I don't know, like
Yeah.
there was this moment it seemed like where it shifted where you had this one person that really like made that like, I think it was a teacher that was like, no, you're gonna go. And it kind
Right.
of like changed that trajectory of everything. So I would love if like you just spend a few moments kind of like talking me through that.
Yeah. So I'm from a town called Rui, Wisconsin. It has a population of 250 people. I grew up on a small farm. We had beef cattle and pigs and horses and everything like that. Um, my mom grew up 10 minutes away. My dad grew up 10 minutes away. Everybody from that area was born there, stays there, all of that. So with that too, like the school I went to was literally in the middle of a cornfield. It was 10 different villages would drive into it. So I had a graduating class of like 60 people, but in my own town, it was like three of us. Um, and yeah, you were with the same people in that same like lot in the cornfield for 14 years, from preschool to senior year of high school. And yeah, it's just like it's obviously an extremely poor area. So there's just not a lot of opportunities. Like even while I was going through the school system there, so many opportunities would be cut by the time we were in fourth grade. All, field trips were cut, or then there'd be programs cut. And then by the time I got to high school, you really had like one to two teachers for one subject for the entire high school. So I'd be with the same teacher for like 4 years and whatnot. So it just limited opportunity in addition to like AP courses. I think we had three offered and only worked for me to take two. No really college prep, anything like that. So yeah, I'd say like of the graduating classes where I'm from, it only 50% would usually go on to higher education.
Wow.
And of that, very few went to four-year universities. Many went to technical colleges. Um, so yeah, Madison, I just always grew up thinking like how far out of reach it was for me, like what a dream that would be. But then like high school was just kind of like a playground for me. Like I was involved in everything. I was a president of like every club. I was everything from, the drama club to then also, or debate club, theater, math team, captain of the sports team, student council, FBLA, FFA, everything. So then I was like, dude, I have such a loaded resume at this point. Like, let's go try to do something with it.
My high schoolers today called that cord collecting.
Oh, yeah, it's literally that. And then I tried to do like, I wasn't even trying to differentiate myself. I think I was just like bored, honestly. Like I
Right.
opened the first school store, so then I got like some work experience from that, even though I had already been working like my whole, I think by the time I graduated, I had had like four different jobs. So yeah, I was like, then I just applied early. I had taken the ACT starting when I was a sophomore because I just wanted to learn how to do it. I did it like three times to get my best score and then just crossed my fingers. And luckily, UW-Madison wanted me. And I had a yes from them by like September going into my senior year, which was really nice.
That's a relief. Yeah, for sure.
Yes, yeah,
Did
for
you
sure.
always know that your degree is in marketing? Is that
Yeah.
correct? And did you always know that you wanted to concentrate in sports?
No, I actually went in as a genetics major at UW. I was going to do
Okay,
genetics and theater because I was a huge like theater kid kind of growing up. I
for sure.
had Like a weird fact is of like the debate team, I did solo acting competitively for 4 years, and I was one of the few students in the state of Wisconsin to have four golds of winning state every single year. So yeah, it's just like random facts at this point. But yeah,
That's
I
your
went in,
icebreaker fact.
yes, it really is. Um, so I went in as a genetics major because I really did great in sciences and biology and AP Bio. I got like a 5 out of 5 in the class. So went in for that. And then I think like part of me does regret. I think it just like out of practicality, like wanting to do genetics is like, well, I don't know if like where that could lead me or if I'd really get to use my personality. And then with theater, like what's really the point of going through with it? And so I think I just got down to like the one thing I knew how to do very well was work my ass off. And so I just thought to business school and marketing because it was kind of the most creative form of that. And then I was always like a huge jock growing up. Like I played volleyball competitively for 10 years on like the travel circuit too, and then softball for 14 years. So
Nice.
I knew I wanted to do that, but honestly, what got me into sports was I refused to go home my after my freshman year because I was like, I'm not going back to the middle of nowhere. Like, I will just stay here and work. And I had already started, I moved into college early actually to bartend because I was like, just always focused on having jobs. And so I was looking through like the student job board and saw one for the student athletic marketing. So that's what ultimately led me to sports.
Wow. Wow. I think that sports in general has such a way of bringing people, unexpected people together. But even on the
Exactly.
professional side of it, that's just so interesting to see that those connections happen there as well. Of course they do. Of course they do.
Yeah. And then honestly, even when I was going through college and knowing that my career was just continuing to grow in sports, I had a bit of a, going into college, especially such a like liberal, incredible place like Madison, I started to get really politically involved, especially with a lot of the organizations I was in. And I had some moments of wanting to switch over to like poli sci and get into the political side of things because I'm very outspoken on that side as well. But then exactly of what you said, I thought like, God, what is a better tool for getting people to listen or bring not
Mm-hmm.
like-minded people together than sports? And I just working at UW Athletics, like there's just standing on the field at like a Saturday game day, there's just this energy like you can't describe, and it really just
Right.
brings everybody together. And I was like, I could just be a political mind within that. And I think that every single kind of job just needs people that are thinking in that way and thinking of
Mm-hmm.
people. So I just kind of thought like I could be an inside agent from the sports side, thinking in that way.
That's so interesting that you said that. I think it's really important to remember that like the human connection is actually what's going to get us through all of this kind of
Exactly.
uh
Yeah.
just like up and down of the world, but like the more we can be together, like of course like forces are going to try and pull us apart. But like
Yeah.
sports, like if you can get 90,000 people in a stadium wearing one color for one team, like that's incredible. Like I don't know many other music has that up,
Yeah.
those ways. Politics does bring people together like that, but it's also it's like the backbone of that is like divisiveness, and the
Exactly.
backbone of sports is like togetherness and connection, and I love
Yeah.
that.
And I think like it's sports brings out so much joy as well. And I think like in the political side of things, and even when I was in college and trying to get things done, and like I think I was also in college at the time where I was president of homecoming committee, and the week of homecoming committee was also election week. And we all went crazy for a certain someone to win, and then Trump won.
Yeah.
And it was such a like tough time, and I didn't really know what to do. But through sports and everything, like I realized there's so much utility and joy and that
Mm,
human connection. Like that's also how we get messages through. Like you can't just pound negativity into people. You need to make them feel
right.
something.
So that week, that Saturday was at your homecoming game,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
then and so like what was the mood? What was that like? Can you
Well,
remember?
so we had been, you get elected as president of homecoming committee. I got elected as a sophomore, and you work for a year planning this, and
Hmm.
it's a
Hmm.
whole week. So like everything from the parade, and then there's events every single day for the students or whatever. And obviously, the election happened on a Tuesday. We had a lot was happening at UW-Madison at the time. Like during one of our rallies, we went up to like Bascom Hill, and we had such an incredible and a powerful Black Lives Matter group on campus, and they were there like protesting too. So myself and the vice president, who's actually my best friend to this day, we like went up to them. We're like, God, thank God you guys are here. Like, are you okay with us just being on the side of this? And so like we just worked together, and we knew how important that message was. But then when the election happened, we kind of had to rally and say, like, what do we do? Do we continue this? And like we decided to be able to give other people a platform as well through like all of our events and whatnot. At our Friday homecoming parade, the parade was shut down with a Black Lives Matter protest. And we didn't really know what to do. We're college kids. We're looking at our friends across the way protesting for something so necessary. Then we're looking behind us at this huge parade line that we had worked a year on. And we just decided to go up to them and say like, thank you for being here. Like, let's continue. It got a lot of backlash from older alumni that I wrote strongly worded emails back to. But yeah, it was a really heavy week, but I think I grew so much, and I learned a lot of yeah, how to behave and how to not
Hmm.
freak out, and how actually the solution is so simple. People just kind of go to their own ego and aggression in those situations. So, yeah, it was another fantastic example of like politics and sports mixing early
Yeah.
on in my career.
So now we are in 2024 and we obviously have another important election coming up. What would you say to college students on campus right now? And like no matter who what candidate wins, you're going to have, it shows like 50% of the population are going to be upset one way or the other. It's so close. It's one
Mhm.
of the tightest ever. So, when you have a college campus and you know that that divisiveness could be coming, like what would you say to them? Like you were in one of the most like high intense elections and it didn't turn out in your favor. And so like I
Right.
think you can have that perspective on both ways.
Yeah, I think like elections can equally make people feel like powerless, like their voice doesn't matter, their vote doesn't matter, whatever that outcome was. And I say, like, what I've even said to a lot of people just getting into the job force and everything is like, utilize the power that you have on campus. You have the ability to make an entire world for yourself there with the resources around you. Um, after the election, I was very, very upset. Also, it was a time where people were finally talking about like women's issues more.
Mm.
And at Madison, we had a lot of strings of bad like sexual assault situations happening. So I like used the connections that I made through homecoming, and I rallied up like an entire panel, and I put the like head campus executives on a panel to allow students to ask them questions of like, why are these people being prosecuted? What is happening? What do I do if this happens to me? Um, and yeah, it was just something I wanted to do, and I like rallied up the power to do it. So I'd say like whatever you're passionate about,
Action.
exactly. And like you
Do
have all the
something.
ability to do that. You have so many resources. Just I would encourage people like use those for good. Like let's
Right.
spread that is good.
I love that. And I love this conversation. I feel like I could have this conversation for
I
four
could
more
too. I love
hours.
it.
But I do also want to draw that parallel and kind of come back into like how you finished your education and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah.
I think it's really incredible how you went from just like not knowing that it was sports, being so involved in sports by the time you left Wisconsin.
Mhm.
I saw like you were part of the Twitter like team, which like that's a whole conversation
Yeah.
because that is just like sports writing in general and how you capture that voice is really just a topic that I think everyone needs more education on, myself included. but if we could go and talk about how you took action from going from your, like you went from the, marketing degree into the internship at Under Armour, and then
Hmm.
how that led you into like ultimately like the creative ads agency and things like that.
Yeah. So I just realized through working at a university, working with the individual teams, then working with a brand, I was like, at the core of everything are the athletes. And that's also
Mm,
where you unlock all of the power and all of the platform as well. And I think like I had started to observe just like how much these athletes had on their shoulders, how much they had teams behind them that were helping, propel things. But so I was like, why don't I just go right to the source and like be that person for athletes, and help them like do whatever they want and do better. So that led me to thinking like, oh, agent, I would want
mhm,
to there. So I had spent probably like 2.5 years just cold calling people. I would like go crazy on LinkedIn of anybody at any possible agency. I remember by the time I got the Under Armour internship, I I had applied to 45 internships and I got turned down for 44. And
wow.
then leaving college, I applied for, or my senior year, I applied for 75 jobs. And I didn't get any of them with all my resume and everything. I was so not connected. Like I'm a farm kid from the middle of nowhere.
Mm,
And that was another like huge light bulb that went out on for me of like, it is super unattainable to get a lot of these jobs, but so many important voices are waiting on the outside to get in. And when we're just kind of manufacturing the same voice over and over, it's not leading to any kind of change. So
mm.
I finally got a job as a receptionist at CAA, and I was like, whatever, like I will put my gloves on. If anybody can work their way up, it's me. Um, so I moved to New York to be a receptionist. I had to live in the outskirts of Brooklyn. I had to get a loan for my rent because I was making so little. And that was also like, it was such a learning experience of going
Wow.
from small Wisconsin to New York City and also understanding money in a way that I had never like seen or understood before. And I just kind of started to clock things of like who were getting these opportunities, who could afford to get these
Mm,
opportunities. And also coming back to the athlete, like, I don't know, a lot of these people working don't really seem to represent who these athletes are. Like, how are they really understanding
right.
them or what their causes or platforms should be? So I just kept working my way up, got into mailroom. Finally, after a 4-month interview process, got the desk of the head of NBA endorsements and went into the NBA side of things. At that point, I still did view men's sports, of course, as the pinnacle of like being a woman in sports then meant a woman working in men's sports. There wasn't a conversation really on women's sports. And I didn't even know that I had that passion. I had worked in women's sports in college, but I still hadn't really connected the dots there. I think I was more focused on being a big dog in that industry and
Mm,
helping good from that side of things. Um, yeah, and then I just went on and 3 more years of that, I ended up working for this big NBA agent in the CAA Chicago office and helping manage his clients, helping manage him. And then it just got a point where I felt so creatively unfulfilled. I had done this huge initiative at CAA during the next election to get every single one of our 76 US NBA players registered to vote and get them a absentee ballot because I knew that they were all traveling. Also, they live in a million different states, so the registration process is really difficult. No one wanted to help me. Nobody cared. So I just single-handedly took that on myself. And then when I got it done, it was like a big promotion for the company or whatever. But then I was like, dude, that took me so much to do. Like it should not be that hard. And like these athletes have such powerful people in their corners, but like
mm,
I think I started to connect like yeah, just what was driving the people in their corner and also understanding I'm like, damn, that's when I first started looking to the women's side of the game and like these women are doing the exact same thing that men are doing, but actually more impressive because they're being mothers and having their periods during all of it, then having to go play overseas, everything like that. So I was like, what if they had the same people in
And
their corner
making less.
levers? Yeah, exactly. So that's when I went into, I through a connection from Under Armour, I got kind of recruited for the first ever marketing department job at a women's basketball agency. And that was when, like, it was like Barbie's dream doors opened up for me. And I was like, huh, like, this is how the world can operate. Like, women's sports and the WNBA for me specifically was it everything changed. It was such a collaborative, beautiful environment. You had to get like you had to hustle. You had to try to scrape for these deals so hard, but it felt fun to do it and you were doing it for the right reasons. And every single one of my women athletes were inherently political, which was amazing. Like I repped a lot of the women that were part of flipping the Senate seat in Atlanta or in Georgia, and wore Breonna Taylor's name on their jerseys. So I was so inspired by them and
Mm,
just wanted to help. And a lot of times putting money in their pocket freaking helps, obviously. Um, so yeah, and then it just got to a point where I was repping so many women, and I knew that men got smaller teams, or they got larger teams that got to focus on them. And I
mm.
was like, this isn't equitable for the women's experience. And it's a really hard decision because I want to be in every one of their corners, but I can't be giving them half-ass service. Because at one point I was repping up to 100 athletes. It was just me.
Wow.
So yeah, I made the decision to join this agency called Stoked, which was a kind of a spin-off of a CAA. One of the former heads there of sports endorsements made Stoked. And I did it so I could focus on women aside from just basketball players and a smaller subset of them. And then, yeah, we got acquired by Range, but it's just taken off since then. And being on the women's side, everything clicked for me. And it's like completely matching purpose, passion, and just fun too.
How
I don't
many
know if that was
women?
really the answer to your question at all, but that's where I
Oh
went with
my gosh, that was so perfect and honestly, way more than I could have asked for. I
it.
think it's so incredible to see, men have had this forever. Like
Mhm.
men have had these teams and to be able to recognize it at such an early point before like the explosion of women's sports really kind of has taken off. This year it was really amazing to just watch the evolution from, women's soccer and, also from rugby and then going into the Olympics and track and field, which has always been like really special during Olympic years. But then something happened and there's this momentum around it. Can you
Mhm.
speak to that? Do you feel that? Do you feel like women's sports are, you know, on the cusp of something new, or is it kind of leveling off?
Completely. I think that, well, the day I started at SIG to become a WNBA agent, marketing agent, was the same day that NIL became legal. And that boom I saw happen together. And I think because NIL was such a playing field of it's the same sports, the same at the same universities, you also cannot pay people for their athletic performance. So it was kind of like giving men and women the same opportunity and watching
Mm,
women soar with it. Um, and that obviously came out of the fact that most of the first year of NIL, most of the top creators and earners were women. Um, and so I think it opened up a lot of doors, and it was kind of like we were at this turning point of, when I started then too, it was interesting, even like makeup deals were considered kind of voodoo in the
mm.
space because men were the ones largely employed and behind these. So they felt like, oh gosh, well, we have to try to convince the world that these are elite athletes. We can't also have them like wearing lipstick. That
Be
would like diminish.
beautiful.
And then more women just got involved and they were like, I know I can still like kick ass with a wing eyeliner. That has nothing to do with anything. And then everybody's minds kind of went like, whoa, these people are women, like that sort of thing. Or um, so I think the explosion happened and we realized how dynamic women are. Everything from, you know, the very, very girly girls on court or whatever, to the more masculine presenting, to everybody in between, all
Mm.
of the non-binary and transgender athletes and everybody in the space. It's such women's sports is such a dynamic space that a marketer can get well beyond what they're paying for. And then it was kind of that point of like, exactly, we need to level off because then we need to pay them for the exponential job that they're doing. But I think the Olympics in particular was this very solidifying moment. And the fact that it was the first Olympics where it was 50-50 men and women. And every storyline pretty much was women. Every medal was women. All of the marketing things that were so fun were women. So I think it was like, yeah, it was that moment of not even we have arrived, but I think the turning point that's happening in the business of women's sports are the structure of sports was made by men for men, of course, because women's sports didn't really like exist before then. But because of that, there's a huge, because it was all men eyes, they didn't necessarily know where to look.
Mm.
And then women got involved and they were like, there's a ton of money over there if you would just pay attention. And I think that like the Olympic time was like, we haven't arrived. We're just the best business decision. Like we've already been here. And it's the time of like, we're no longer asking for charity. You're just making bad business decisions if you're not investing in this.
Right. It's good. It's just good business. And I
It's just
do,
a business.
it's just good business. And I do recognize that a lot of the top NIL are also like top social media creators. Like they have the
Exactly. Yeah.
highest following count on like TikTok and Instagram, which leads me to, is that a part of your role? Are you getting involved in their actual like social media, or are you allowing their voice to just shine and maybe just like giving ideas? What does that look
Yeah.
like?
No, it's difficult. I can advise on social media all day, but at the end of the day, like you can't, my number one thing as an agent is like even if it's bad advice, I refuse to tell them to be anybody different. It's just
Mm,
authenticity is always going to be what is the most important thing. And it's also at the end of the day, they're a person and they need to feel good with who they are and how they live. So it's difficult. It's kind of a scenario of you have it or you don't.
mm,
Mainly because social media is an entire different job. You have to be so dedicated to it, and it has to be able to feel somewhat effortless because you're also a athlete on top of it. And sometimes you're also a student on top of it.
mm,
Um, so you kind of like in the recruiting process, you have an eye for that. And it's not to say that somebody who's not a great social media creator won't be a great with marketing or have deals, but then kind of like they kind of have to be top of their sport of an
mm,
athlete
mm,
or just have a really interesting other like niche thing. But I'd say like the reason it's so I get involved as much as I can. When I have a marketing deal, I take things a bit further than most agents and I actually like will fully execute it for the athlete too. And I try to give them ideas or like
mm.
there's some athletes I am logged into their Instagram and I'm posting for them. I'm making their reels for them just because I'm like, however I can help. Like I know
Right,
you're
right, right.
but it is difficult because the way that the market is changing is every single thing is so social media based. And also we're seeing a lot of long-term deals go out the window for these like quick
Mm,
short-term
mm,
content deals. So yeah, it's just a huge part of it. And like obviously Alona is this insane unicorn that it's natural to her, it's authentic. She doesn't get bogged down by social media. The second she films something, she posts it. Like she has zero in her drafts. So it's just this amazing thing where her and I have had this conversation like an agent cannot make you by any means. An agent is a tool and a hype person to have in your corner. Like Alona is the star completely. And we just align because I understand her message and I'm going to protect that message with like my life while also getting her paid for it. So That's, yeah, kind of another long-winded answer, but there's only so much you can do on the social side.
What is the like how long would you say it takes to build that trust between you and that athlete to be able to, for them to give you that password?
Yeah, every single scenario is different.
Yeah.
Even down to some athletes, it's like talk to me directly. Some athletes, it's talk to this person. Some it's like have me on a text with my whole family and let's all talk all the time. So
Mm-hmm.
you just wait it out and you feel out what their vibe is. I love getting in person with like if I had just recruited an athlete and getting in person with them. I think that's what's special about women repping women too. We understand, like, you and I could sit down for the first time and, like, I'd be like, tell me about your childhood trauma. We're
Right.
very good at, I actually literally was just talking to my therapist yesterday about this, about how men feel there's actually more of a physical reaction for them in heavy conversations, whereas women, it's very natural and actually kind of nourishing for us. And it's the same vibe when you get in person with an athlete and you can tell what their vibe is. You see like what they might need, and sometimes it just clicks right away.
Mm.
Sometimes you can see where, like, as the expert in this, you can see where they would just need more help. So you offer that. And then, yeah, like, a lot of my athletes are around my same age, so it's fun. I show up and it's like hang out with a friend and you can
Right.
like build that trust in the same way you do a friendship
Oh, and also just like happen to be the best athletes in the world.
and just happen to be that as
And just
well.
happen to be like carrying gold medals and silver medals and bronze medals around. Like that is really phenomenal. And I know we are running out of time. I would love if we could just wrap up and you could tell me just one or two tips for someone that would love an internship in this field and specifically like with range or just as an agent, someone that's wanting to get into that. Like what are things, steps, to take?
Yeah. There's a million steps you could take. And I think my advice is to like be your own agent, like very
Mm,
much take your life in your own hands as like I think as somebody that came into this industry in such a unique way and an unconnected and a like, what the hell you doing here way, I had to completely dig for it. I had to claw my way in. But as a result of building that mentality, it's also why I have a very unique high level position now because I
mm,
got used to like trusting my gut, figuring out what I liked and didn't like, being comfortable putting myself out there, trying things, rather than kind of just like coasting through it and saying like, yeah, I think I was able to be really led by my passions. And so I think that combination of like the take action, know yourself well, know what you like, what you don't like, and what at the end of the day, all of this is literally just a job. Yes, I am friends with a lot of my clients, 1,000%, but this is a job. Like
mm.
life is the most important thing, the rest of life. So like lead by your passions. Otherwise, nothing is ever going to feel good if you're not doing it for something bigger.
I love that. I love that. And then finally, as far as like internships go specifically, like where would you have someone, where would you like suggest someone look for those?
It's interesting. I'd say surf on LinkedIn like it is your Instagram. Always be in that job section. I still am to this day just because I'm nosy and curious and I want to see like but
Be
absolutely that.
curious for sure.
Yeah. And then if you're interested in a certain like, there's been times in my life where I really thought that I was going to go to like the sneaker side of things. So
Mm,
then go on Jordan Brand, Adidas, Puma, all of those, and go to their job board on that. And then, like, one big thing is feel free to, if you love a company or you're really curious about, in the same way I was really curious about sports agencies, go on LinkedIn and find people at lower positions, more entry level positions that work there and message them. They are the information sources. At CAA, the Assistant Information Network, they knew everything.
for
So I
sure.
think that's a really great way to start. And then if you like hit it off with somebody, maybe they'll introduce you to their boss and you can have a call with them and then that leads to an internship. It's a real toss up of like the actual just applying and hoping that you have enough on your resume and then of course
For
knowing
sure.
always helps, but you have to be willing to cultivate those relationships. And someone once told me in networking too, like it's a two-way street. If somebody's going to offer you a lot of advice and utility, think of how you can offer them utility back and don't make it just a handout situation.
That's great advice. That's great advice. Finally, what's your favorite part of your job?
Ah, honestly, I think there's a lot of favorite parts. Like, there's nothing better than being able to show up to a set and it feels like you're hanging out with your friends there. But I will say, like, the moments that really like take me away, make me teary-eyed, are being able to see the impact like tangibly. When we were in
Mm,
Paris walking around with Alona, the fact that people from all different countries would be running up to her and saying, from, young girls and boys saying, like, I'm going to be playing rugby now because of you, all the way to older women saying, like, you gave me license for the first time to feel good about myself. And that's when
right.
we can tell, like, the work. And at the end of the day, it's just marketing deals, 1,000%. It's getting paid for stuff, but the exposure really, really matters. And
Mm,
I think that that exposure was what I needed growing up to know that I could do whatever. So to be able to be putting something out there in the world that's going to make other girls not have to feel like how I felt at times, like that's the very like mind-blowing kind of moments.
well, I can't thank you enough. This has been so incredible. I will send you a copy of my paper when I
Please
finish
do,
it.
please do.
And just know that you have such a big fan of me in me. Like I love your page. I love watching what you share and also just following along. Like you're giving someone like me agency to know that like the path doesn't have to be normal. I'm almost 40 and getting into this because I recognize and know like my daughter and the world that she's going into deserves to be equal and fair. And like I have all the time in the world to fight for it now. So, it's like it doesn't have
Love
to be
that.
one way or another. I really, really look forward to just, staying connected over the next forever.
Thank you so much. That means the world. And I think your path not being normal is going to be your biggest superpower. It was for me.
Sure.
So I'm so, so happy for you. I'm so happy you reached out. And thank you for just, yeah, being who you are and caring about what you do.
This is great. Thank you so much. I will talk to you
Oh,
soon.
all right. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.